I grew up in a small farming community and I thought I was going to be a farmer. And then when I was a senior in college, I saw this movie, Top Gun. It really inspired me to go fly jets. So I joined the Air Force. And I learned to fly the B-52 and the B-2 stealth bomber. During my career, I got to lead the 509th Operations Group that controls all the B-2s in the U.S. Air Force inventory. It was a tremendous honor. During that time, we had unprecedented success. We deployed a brand new communication system. We had successful missions in Libya to stop Libyan Air Force from bombing the Libyan people. These were things that I was tremendously proud of during my career. When I left the White House, I recognized that I needed to tell the story of what I'd learned over the last 7 years.
So I want to begin by asking General Spalding about the nature of our competition or conflict with China today.
We talk about national security so much and it becomes about weapons. It's not about weapons. It's about our ability.
I had been trained to fly the most expensive, sophisticated warplane in the history of mankind. And yet I realized that that was not going to protect our country. And that's because that represents a different way of thinking about warfare.
Credible threat. Tensions with China could lead to a deadly war.
The party knows the benefit of throwing the red meat of nationalism to the crowd.
A third world war. This is a new and concerning signal. A threat far more serious to our national security than that posed by the Taliban or even the pandemic. It would be understandable if the phrase is just a metaphor. If the Chinese regime is simply likening the degree of the pandemic's global damage to post-war trauma. But is there more to the story? When the crisis gets turned in favor of the CCP and its grand scheme to wage a new world war? What happens when the Chinese regime, in supporting terrorism, has its eyes on the US? Are we becoming the target of this third world war? On March 16, 2020, when the pandemic started to take hold in the US and Europe, Liu Hong, deputy editor-in-chief of Chinese magazine Globe, wrote an article titled, "From Another Perspective, This is World War III." The article was then forwarded by nearly all Chinese mainstream media: Sina, Tencent, Phoenix, NetEase, Xinmin Weekly, among others. It's as if an invisible force was directing public opinion to focus on this article. The magazine is headed by Xinhua News Agency. Xinhua is the official channel of the CCP. Its reporting principles serve as guidance for other state outlets. Here's what the article says. War is all-encompassing. Doctors fighting the epidemic is a battle. Guaranteeing supplies is a battle. Home quarantine is also a battle. This is a medical war, a security war, but also a psychological war. Panic will result in the collapse of the Western stock market. At the end of the article it says, war inevitably changes the world order. World War I and World War II have completely changed the international order and triggered innovations in technology and revolutions in society. The unconventional World War III will, with no doubt, have a similar profound impact on the scientific and technological revolution and the world order. This war concept came up more and more. On August 21st, 2020, Jin Sanrong, a top Chinese Communist Party strategist, made a speech in the Yangtze River Daily.
In our international relations circle, we have defined it, the pandemic, as the first unconventional security world war of mankind. It has had a wide impact on the world economy and international politics. We will find that we are in 100 years of unprecedented changes, in 100 years of unprecedented opportunities. Everywhere is our opportunity. We should plan and then move. When it's time to strike, we must strike.
Di Dongsheng is another strategist for top CCP officials. He unabashedly compared the pandemic to the battle for China's ascension to the center of the world stage.
We know that the rise of great powers requires wars. This time it's reasonably China's turn. 100 years is normally a cycle. It's China's turn now. What is certain is that the U.S. has officially lost its global leadership this time.
It's not hard to tell from the language of state media and CCP think tanks. World War III isn't just about the pandemic striking humanity. It's about transforming the world order, a reshuffling of the world's dominating powers in a path to global domination. Why does the CCP see this unprecedented global pandemic as an opportunity unseen in a century? What does an unconventional World War III really mean for the US government and for Americans? Are we aware of this unconventional war at play? Are we prepared to deal with the Chinese communist threat?
Danger and opportunity exists within the word in Chinese for crisis.
For the Chinese Communist Party, the coronavirus was an opportunity to begin to learn how to control the world.
China has again blamed the U.S. for its performance on pandemic control.
The Wuhan virus gave China a good opportunity because it has been a devastating blow to major countries of the world. That could potentially be China's obstacles to its supremacy and domination of the world have been really affected in a very negative way by this Chinese virus.
The Chinese Communist Party launched this war against other democratic systems, using the public health crisis as a tool, as a weapon. They play this invisible war, this unrestricted warfare to other countries, while other people have no idea. They all think the Chinese government dealing with a public health crisis too. They didn't realize they are treated like a military operation.
April 2020, the Chinese Communist Party International Department released a letter signed by 230 world communist parties, including the Communist Party USA, by the way. And one of the main themes was, don't blame China, talk about how great China is in solving the problem. We should be so grateful to China, and China's socialized healthcare system is so great. They used the COVID to maximize the social and economic damage. And these messages were echoed by politicians here, by the news media here.
Dozens of countries are looking to China to rescue them from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Xie to the Chinese government and people.
When they released the virus to the whole world, they immediately secure a lot of those personal protective gears, right? Those are also some of the key biomedical raw materials. And these actual operations probably started many years ago.
This pandemic has really illustrated the vulnerability of the United States.
Made in China. It's a phrase that has become an almost daily reminder.
Pro-Chinese communist unions were shutting the schools and keeping the businesses shut and exercising their influence on democratic governors and politicians to keep the blue states shut as long as they could. You look where China had the most influence: New York, Washington, California, Oregon, and Hawaii, and Boston, Massachusetts. That's where the Chinese communists have the most influence in America, and those were the states that shut down the worst and the longest, because the Chinese wanted them shut down.
The whole world is actually in war with the Chinese Communist Party, because they don't care how many Chinese people die. They don't care how many other people in other countries die. They only care if they can win the battle, they can defeat other political systems, they can win this war.
Even if it wasn't a biological weapon to start out with, Xi Jinping turned it into one.
The entire strategy of the Chinese Communist Party during the coronavirus has been, one, to hype fear of the coronavirus, and to use that fear to create doubt about democratic societies. The coronavirus is not a bio-war program. It's an information, it's a political, it's an influence war program. It's about using fear to create division in societies, to make the citizens of that society lose confidence in a democratic system.
Then the propaganda you're hearing is that the United States is going out of business, the free world economy is going out of business. You know, we're the true world leader, we need to be doing this and taking over, we're the trusted leader. You can't believe a word that the Americans or the Australians or the Canadians and or the British say. So you see all this propaganda coming up, and this is straight out of the communist playbook.
Beijing today announced that it has returned to 0 new COVID cases.
According to the report titled "America Ranked First," the United States is well deserved to be the world's #1 anti-pandemic failure.
First thing you need to achieve in your desiring to impose your will on another party is first you have to undermine their convictions and their self-confidence and their own strength of will, so that they are then vulnerable and open to new influences.
We believe that it is important for the United States to change its own image and to stop advancing its own democracy.
That led to the Chinese Communist Party to recalculate the international power balance, which obviously is manifested in Xi Jinping's public pronouncements that somehow there is a tendency called Dongsheng Xijiang, that is, the East is rising, the West is declining, by which he means that China's time has come and the West is declining. Therefore, they become much more confident, they become much more aggressive, they become much more belligerent.
They've spent the last 40 years basically figuring out how to build up the world's dominant military power. They want to be the dominant power because they view the United States and the democracies, including Taiwan, Japan, as the main threat.
Yes, we're in World War III now. We just don't know it. And that's the worst possible position you can be in. When you're losing a war and you don't even know you're in it, it's hard to get worse than that.
The goal and the objective for this World War III scenario for the Chinese Communist Party is to defeat the democratic system and proving to the Chinese population, proving to the world that the China model works. The authoritarian communist style dictatorship work better than democratic systems. And we are in a world war with the Chinese Communist Party without realizing it.
Taliban, the pandemic, global dominance. The footprints of the Chinese Communist regime's hidden agenda. As our investigation unfolds, a person close to the CCP's founder let us in on a secret. Since the very beginning of 1949, when the Communist Party took power, the CCP has been plotting to ultimately defeat the United States and dominate the world.